Zach from Gravel by California, here at Grizzly Cycles, ready to take you out for Scented Saturday, Bakersfield. Now, we've been out here many times before, making our way up to the foothills in Sierra, whether it's the Rock Cobbler or Rancheria. Today though, we're taking a little different slant, kind of going into the Central Valley a little bit more, out to Shafter to Tin Cup Coffee, and through all this farmland. Makes me kind of hungry. For gravel, let's roll. I'm a big fan of the stoke that Grizzly Cycles brings, and it was long overdue to have ascended here, especially with the community this shop has fostered that carries a lot of local pride. But I'm always learning something new about Bakersfield when I visit, as the eastern part used to be a separate municipality, with the first post office opening in 1876. And even this 1889 train station indicates Kern City's prominence that was eventually annexed by Bakersfield in 1910, and the train station closing over 50 years ago, with Grizzly Cycles located on the edge of this 19th century footprint. Our route headed away from the foothills, deeper into the Central Valley, but don't let that flat profile fool you, the amount of fun out there. It took a lot of wiggling to get this ride started, but we clearly had a big group ready to roll out, with the cold not hampering the excitement factor, as Kevin led us out due north up Alta Vista for a mile, where directions would get complicated for the next half hour, ramping up into the appropriately named Panorama Park, rolling right along the edge that's a surprise to out-of-towners as the elevation creeps up from this direction, where our group seemed endlessly strung out, hopefully with no one falling off during this viewing opportunity, and even more so making our way down, as this was our major descent of the day, where your success wasn't just documented by me, that looked far more menacing in practice, feeling fine as long as I kept my eyes on the prize, with a little dancing along the way that everyone took at their own pace, as this entertainment was equal to a ski run, but I don't think anyone was going to climb back up for a second attempt, with this also being the last moment we'd ride in this much shade. We had some meandering around the waterways to do, first cutting over one of the longtime levees, then nixing the bike path to take the gravel route alongside the Kern River that I imagine spent a great deal of its history underwater, which you could tell by the landscaping alone, reaffirmed crossing the river where now the main flow is channeled away, boomeranging back to the west, and getting a bit more exposure to the sun, but still avoiding some water below, and having to look forward above eye level as well, while we didn't have to conquer mountains out here, though having to be aware of these slight changes of elevation, galloping out of our first dirt sector, with many more to come. I was gaining my bearings crossing over Manor Street that looked like a freeway, with a little bit of backtracking that was likely in the name of dirt, getting our most gravelly feeling sector, now on the north bank of the Kern River, with the theme in finding as much dirt as we could, but inevitably we had to use some pavement to get out of town, snaking our way through northern Bakersfield, along the southern edge of the airport if you're paying attention, eventually making our way under the main Highway 99, trying to take the best off-road option, riding along the older incarnation of this historic highway, which was totally nuts. couple of turns later, we veered off onto the dirt, returning to our common relationship, connecting to one of the many canals in the area that just feels super efficient to ride, and even seemed to be constructed perfectly for gravel. But we had to take a break in our most 2020s moment, ordering ahead for coffee. Even though we were parting from our last section of residential for a while, without any reservations of doing a little cyclocross practice to get us back up along the canal again, kicking off the next 10 miles where asphalt would not even cross our minds. If you find all these vineyards surprising, you shouldn't, as California wine is 70% made with grapes from the Central Valley, which is amazing when you recognize the big picture of how much infrastructure is needed in this region, as we were only seeing a small percentage of it, and to think the Calloway Canal, which we were now paralleling, dates back almost 150 years ago. On one hand, we were really enjoying this experience, but enough that I realized I was going to be late for my pickup order, which got a little complicated flipping sides on Calloway, that it didn't surprise that some had missed the turnoff, with another one just ahead, taking a deep dive into almond country that felt like riding an abstract version of the Champs-Élysées, but definitely a far more organic one. And then why not sprinkle in a taste of Strada Bianchi without having to ship our bikes overseas, as there were also some dirt opportunities rolling into Shafter for our regularly scheduled stop, okay, a little late, making it into the spacious confines of Tin Cup Coffee that is also part of a larger theater complex, and being very accommodating for a cyclist group of our size, where the breakfast burritos were flowing like wine, and it was easy to get comfortable here. But Kevin, we're only halfway done with the ride. This caffeine-injected group was ready to roll, and even though our route was roughly 2/3 dirt, there were plenty of opportunities off to the side to alter those proportions, seeing it more so starting our return in the general east direction, where I guess you wouldn't plow over your oil fields to build your field of dreams, soon getting back to our off-roads and our series of canals, where if you think directions are simple because of this Cartesian grid, you'll learn you'll have to pay attention more than you think out there, as we were far more successful keeping straight lines along these deep channels, leading us on to Kimberlina, with a K, road, that at 3.5 miles was our longest straight line of the day, with everyone leaning towards their own preference of riding on dirt, or up on the main street if they felt more comfortable, as I don't know if you define whether we were riding on road or sidewalk here. Interesting visually seeing the different modes move linearly, moving out of the way for those prepping for harvest season, and reciprocating we were all happy to be out here, ending off with crossing Highway 99 at juxtaposed speeds, as we were about to turn onto the greatest road that has ever existed, that wasn't quite pavement, nor really dirt, but you can definitely send it on this road. There were far more options for pit stops than you would think, as heading back into farmland reminded me of being a kid, having fun pushing a cart through the maze of department stores, that after making each turn, I was eager to find the next, except this time we had GPS guiding us. Now with the Beardsley Canal again, bringing a diagonal twinge, as it's not a gravel ride until you start blaming others about directions. Vital that you find the right side of the canal to ride on, and crossing over before hitting a dead end into the freeway. But that didn't mean other obstacles weren't thrown at us, with mud that, well, wasn't that much of a holdup, and vehicles that were only dangerous if this was a Transformers movie, which might have had some truth to it, with this unexplained galactic-sized pit to navigate that thankfully, like Cross's here skills, could handle, knocking off our last segment of dirt. Although the mud would hang with us a bit more, and some of these tools might have helped re-entering into Bakersfield proper, thankful that the group stuck together, crossing the mighty Kern River for the final time with our biggest climb of the day, baked into the last couple of miles, but still not vicious enough to be categorized. Returning back to Grizzly Cycle's exterior, with the status change on that front when Kevin arrived, where everyone was ready to kick up their heels and swap some good stories from the day, as this was the perfect way to kick off Send It season for 2024. Well, it was clear it was a different type of Send It, being our flattest, but it was a lot of fun. Really, this was like a perfect group ride, going through all the fields, and even though you look at a map, it seems like it's a grid, but finding your way between all the trees and orchards and everything, it's part of the adventure. Anyways, thanks Kevin, Grizzly Cycles, fantastic day. We'll be back. If you want to support us, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, go to our shop on our Patreon, so we can travel the state, so we can bring you more. And stay dirt.